RicoRock2001 here, making this video on these two PlayStation 2s. Well, specifically, this is a guide video on you guys if you're after a PlayStation 2, but you're unsure if you should get a fat or a slim, and you're afraid that you're going to end up with a model that's going to fail over time. And you hear people say, some say the fat is good and the slim's bad, or the slim's good and the fat's bad. Well, I'm here to tell you, there are good variations of both variations, or good models of both variations, and then there's bad models of both variations. So, if you just want to jump to conclusions, let me tell you, for the fat one, avoid the launch model and go for the later variations of the fat PS2. And for the slims, you want to get the ones, well, the second to last model PS2 slims. But if you want to know more about which models are good and which ones are bad, keep watching, and I'm going to tell you. Let's start with the fat model PS2. The PS2 was released in 2000, starting with the fat variations, which I do not recommend. That includes both the Japanese and the American/European. You want to avoid the launch models at all cost, because you're going to have trouble with games reading. The laser will die out and stop reading certain games, or both games altogether. I've had two launch model PS2s, the 30,000 model, the one with the 10 screws on the case, the iLink port next to the bottom USB port. It wouldn't read either of my games. For those who don't know, PlayStation 2s have CD and DVD games. And I have two discs here showing you that the CDs are blue. This is a high-speed CD disc. This is Monopoly Party for the PlayStation 2. And I've got Sonic Heroes, which is a DVD game. PS2s have two lasers, CDs and DVDs. Some will have issues saying, or they won't be able to play the CDs and the blue discs and the PS1 games, while the DVD portion still works, or the DVD portion will be the one that doesn't work, and the high-speed CDs and the PS1 games work just fine. An easy way to test out your PlayStation 2 is, well, test it with practically every disc. Make sure it's a disc that's in really good condition. I mean, these two have a few scratches, but they work really good. I've taken really good care of my games, just so you know. So they may look like they're questionable, but I've been playing a lot of Sonic Heroes. This game works just fine. I even played a lot of Monopoly Party. This works fine also. So let's go over what you want to look for on both variations of the system, starting with the fat PS2. You want to make sure the iLink port is either next to the top USB port or there isn't an iLink port at all. If it's next to the bottom USB port, don't bother with it unless you plan to try to repair it yourself. If you just want to play the games right away, don't bother. It will 99% not work. That's from my experience. I had two of those models. Neither of them worked. They weren't at the same time frame. One was from back in 2011, and the other was in 2019. I tried fixing both of them. I didn't want to bother with them again. So I prefer these later fat PS2s. So you also want to look on the bottom here. If there are two extra screws right here, again, don't bother. The caution information would be a sticker instead of being embedded, engraved into the console shell. Then avoid it. If it's been embedded to the console shell, it's a good model. If it has a sticker here, it's a bad model. You also want to look on the back. There would be a sticker here that says the model number. Except for some models like the 50,000, for some reason, my sticker is over here. I don't know if the previous owner moved it here or if Sony put it there for their own purpose. But when I got this PS2, the sticker was over here instead of being back here. Because I got the HDD with this, which is really nice. But, anyway, since this is a 50,000 model, this has the iLink, the infrared receiver for the DVD remote. So, if you want to use the remote with your PS2, the 50,000 model is the one I recommend. All slim PS2s have the infrared receiver built in. The fat one, 50,000 built in. The older ones, you have to use a controller port adapter for that. So I'll go ahead and move this guy out of the way and I'll show you the slim PS2. Here's what you want to look for on the slim PS2. There's only one good model PS2 from my experience. I don't know about the other ones, but I do know one you need to avoid at all costs. The 75,000 model is the one I recommend staying away from altogether. Those have the most issues reading certain games, audio skipping, video skipping, having trouble reading certain games. Those ones avoid. Every other model, aside from this one, which is the best model, not the color, just the model number, are more reliable. But everything except for this model will have issues. Have you ever had games scratching on your PS2 Slim? Well, let me show you why. This is the 79,000 model. And what's cool about the 79,000 model instead of the other variations, including the 90,000, most PS2 Slims would have a ribbon cable with some adhesive on the metal shielding. And from time to time, that adhesive will wear off, the ribbon cable will raise up, it will scratch onto your discs. Not on this model, the 79,000 model. The ribbon cable is held on by plastic clips around it, and when this goes up and down, I'm being delicate with this just so you know, I'm not touching the eye. This goes up and down, this will not raise up. So if you're after a PS2 Slim and you don't want to bother replacing the ribbon cable because of the adhesive wearing off, this is the model PS2 you want to get. It's the 79,000 model. You can also get this in black, silver, and I think pink as well if you live outside the US. I don't know what model the pink PS2 Slims over in the UK and Australia are. So if you guys know, let me know in the comments. I'm going to guess that's the 70,000 or the 79,004 model. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is the model PS2 Slim you want. Look for the 79,000 model. You want to make sure there's no metal shielding over here noticeable. Just a white ribbon cable. And that's what you want to notice about. Or notice. And over here, the network port, on every other model, the plastic is not covering the metal part of the network connector. This one covers it. So if you see it covering the metal portion of the network jack connector, oops, you want to get this model PS2 Slim. All the other ones that don't have this covering will have the metal shielding, the ribbon cable held on the metal shielding with adhesive, which will wear out and scratch your discs. So if you're after a slim PS2, get the 79,000 model. Every other model, if you want to get a 70,000, a 77,000 model, or even the 90,000 model with the built-in power supply, you're going to have to replace the ribbon cable eventually, otherwise you'll have scratched discs. This PS2 I've had since 2012, 2013. It never scratched any of my discs. I left it running for 2 hours. The ribbon cable never came up and scratched any of my discs. I played a good few hours of Sonic Heroes, and this thing worked perfectly. So, let me just tell you, if you're after a fat PS2, get the 39,000 or the 50,000 model, or try your luck with the 30,000R with the one next to the iLink port next to the top USB port. Don't bother with the one with the iLink port next to the bottom USB port unless you plan on trying to fix it yourself, or you know what you're doing. Slim guy, get the 79,000 model if you don't want to swap the ribbon cable and have to deal with scratched discs. That's all I have to say here. This is Rico Rock 2001 saying, hope this video helps you guys out, or hope it helps you guys out. Wow, I'm having a lot of brain farts. I do apologize. Thanks for watching.